song you could sing forever, and I wanted to rhyme and to bend phrase and time into something clever, but you deserve something I could make up.
Hey. Well, I have two subjects going on in my head at the same time today, so it's gonna be a strange video. I'm hoping I can put them both out there, what I think about two things. One of them has to do with death, and the other one has to do with Satan. I had somebody write me yesterday on one of my videos, basically says, can you answer me this? The second any person is born, they are sentenced to die by their parents. How do we know this? How do we know this? No one escapes death, and your parents knew this when they decided to have you. So the question is, when and how you will die, not if atheists say it is accident and Christians say it is because of sin, but death cannot be disputed by either by either the one thing we both have in common. So only the reason is up to question. Why do we want to escape death? It seems to me that that's like the fear that we have had instilled in us from the moment we're born. Hey, guess what, kids? Congratulations, you got to be born, but hey, you're gonna die one day. Woohoo! Better start dreading it, because death is bad. You're gonna cease to exist, just like you ceased to exist 9 months ago. Oh dear. We're basically taught to fear it. We're taught to fear the inevitable. Okay, we're gonna die, so what? What is the big fucking deal? Death is death. It happens to every single thing. It even happens to stars, and it happens to, eventually it happens to galaxies, I'm pretty sure. I'm straying into unfamiliar territory here because I am not an astronomer, but I'm pretty sure eventually galaxies also die, or maybe they just break apart, drift off into whatever. I don't know, maybe they don't, but stars definitely die. And stars are a lot bigger than we are. Trees that live for hundreds upon hundreds of years eventually die. Every single thing that is born on this planet eventually dies. I don't understand why humans think that death is so horrible. Anyway, so I had some responses back to this person, and I thought that they were rather good. And since it's morning and I know I'm barely here, I'm going to just kind of read what I said. Isn't having the chance to live and experience life worth dying for? Why would anybody want to escape death? On the other hand, what loving human parent would want to bring a child into the world knowing that child will one day be thrown into a furnace to suffer horribly, not just for a human lifetime, but for all eternity? The sun dies, that child is still suffering. The galaxy dies, that child is still suffering. The universe collapses, or does whatever universes do, that child is still suffering. Another universe takes its place, or perhaps the old one is reborn. New galaxies form. That child is still suffering. Trying to get out how long forever is here. If a loving human parent knew that this is what awaited that child, would he or she want to bring that child into the world, even if to enjoy a few decades of getting to live? I would not in a million years want to give birth to a child knowing that this awaits it. That would not be a thing that any loving human parent would do. Yet this so-called loving and merciful God, whom Christians like to say is even more loving than any humans could ever be, allows children to be born knowing ahead of time where they will end up. And that's perfectly okay with him. What's more, he has the power, being all-powerful, of putting whatever it is or whatever it would take to get each of us born into this world to believe in him, including manifesting himself right before them. He's all-knowing, therefore he knows what it would take for each of us to believe in him. Not all of us can just buy into something hook, line, and sinker when there is zero evidence around us in the natural world that this thing exists at all. Some of us need a little more than because this book says, or because mom and dad say, or because these people who work in this building say. Some of us need something more than that warm, fuzzy feeling that we could just as easily get at a family reunion. God knows each of our hearts, supposedly. So how difficult would it be for this all-knowing, loving God to put whatever it is we would need to want to believe in our path? And if the problem is we read the Bible and the majority of its pages depict this God as a heinous, bloodthirsty child killer, making us not want to believe in him even if he does exist, and the fact he makes Satan look like a lap cat by comparison, whose fault would that be? If he inspired this book, and the book turns people off from the very idea of wanting to worship him. I don't know, if I were God and I truly were loving and wise, and all these things that Christians like to claim this God is, and I saw my children repulsed by a book that depicts me as a genocidal monster, and I had other children capable of ignoring this and loving me anyway, no matter how terrible I am depicted, also they can escape death, I'd be more likely to save the ones who were repulsed by such evil and throw the selfish ones looking for eternal life into hell. Anyway, back to your question. I don't see even remotely how a natural conclusion to, i.e. death, to the amazing chance to get to experience life is at all comparable to what God has planned for all of us. He has deliberately created, incapable of believing in him, so that we might suffer agony for all eternity in this place he made especially intended just for this purpose. How is that comparable? How is this God comparable to a loving human parent wanting his or her child to enjoy a little life? So that's what I wrote this person. I don't even know if they read my comments because there was no response back. But I was rather happy with my response because I thought that basically I don't understand how people can even compare the two, because yes, I think life is worth being born and dying for. You know, I don't think that there needs to be something even beyond the wonderful chance to get to live in the first place. So, and I don't think death is that horrible. I think death is just natural. It's what happens to everything. We all have one thing in common. We all have birth, we all have death. And there's this little space in the middle that we get to live before we die. And some of us seem to be really greedy. Some of us not only want to live a long human life, but we want to continue to live forever, because a long human life isn't enough for us. We want to have more. I had a friend die when she was 14. Lovely girl, impaled on a branch up in the mountains. We went inner tubing. And she was a beautiful, beautiful person. She died when she was 14. You know, it kind of makes me angry that people are, they get blessed with this huge, well, I don't want to say huge, but a long life, and they want more, and other people don't even get to live past infancy. You know, I think we should be grateful for what we have. So anyway, I don't want this video to be huge, really long. Why am I saying huge today? I don't know. Anyway, I have to go to work too, so I have to try to hurry. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is Satan. Somebody asked somebody else. I thought they were talking to me, but they weren't. Do you think Satan is good? No, I don't think Satan is good. And of course, I'm not the one he was talking to, but it made me start to think. I don't think Satan is good. Satan wasn't created to be good, was he? Satan was created to be just what he was. God, who knows everything and knows the future, created Satan to serve a purpose. I think of the two of them, the one that's the more evil is the one who created him to serve a purpose. So yes, I think God is even more evil than Satan. I think God calls the shots. And if there's any example in the Bible that shows this more clearly, it's the story of Job. God calls the shots. You know, Satan comes over for a beer, they're like relaxing in front of the TV. They start chatting about Job, who's this unbelievably pious and faithful, devout follower of God, and Satan basically bets God. He's like, he's only doing this because, you know, you've given him so much. It's like a dare. And what does God do? He gives Satan permission to go and basically make Job's world completely fall apart, including kill Job's 10 children. So the 10 people that Satan kills in the Bible, compared to the millions that God kills, okay? He only gets to kill them because God gives him permission. Satan is God's lackey. Satan is God's employee. Satan was made by God to fall, to do everything that he did, all because it serves a purpose in God's divine plan. Yes, I think Satan is evil. That's why God made him that way, because he needs to be evil. God needed a arch enemy, which is really stupid because God is more powerful than Satan. And if he really existed, and if Satan really existed, and God really didn't want Satan around, he would just snuff him out. But he's here because he serves a purpose. So no, I don't think that God is a very nice God for making... I kind of feel sorry for Satan because he was made to be what he is. He was made to fulfill a role, and basically he gets to be the scapegoat that everybody hates because, you know, he does all these bad things. But who made him to do all these bad things? Who put him on this earth to do those bad things? Those bad things are part of God's divine plan, and who gets to carry out the bad thing? You know, Satan is like in the movie Rocky. You've got Rocky walking around and he's being ordered to break people's thumbs who need to pay up. You know, he's a hitman or whatever they call him. Strong arm. Somebody strong arm. And I can't remember the guy who's his boss. But anyway, Rocky's the one that's out there doing all the bad stuff, beating people up to get their money, you know, because they need to pay up. That's what Satan is. Satan's the strong arm of God. Satan's the toughie, the tough. He's the tough guy. In the black leather jacket, and he's got a, you know, switchblade. That's Satan, and God's the guy sitting in the black car waiting for him to, you know, come back after beating up the guy. You know, that's what Satan is. So, and another two things that I think really show the character of God as being evil and not good, and basically in charge of evil. Or basically just a manipulative, sadistic creator, are the stories of Cain and Abel. You know, God created those two. He knew their nature. He knew ahead of time everything that was going to happen. So when God shows preference to Abel, he knew perfectly well that when he did that, he was basically condemning Abel. He knew that Cain would not be able to stand it. He knew that Cain would become jealous of his brother. He knew that Cain would kill Abel. So when God shows preference to Abel, he basically painted a big bullseye on Abel, and gave Cain a nice new archery set. And here, try this out on your brother. He basically wanted Abel to die because, it was all part of his plan. Abel was supposed to die because Cain was supposed to kill him. It's all part of his plan. And God made sure it would happen by showing preference to Abel, which would piss off Cain, his brother, and ultimately Abel dies, and who do we blame? We blame Cain. When in fact, the guy who was pulling... Damn it! Excuse me while I make some disgusting noises. I have a frog in my throat because it's early. God's pulling the strings in this story. But who gets to be blamed? Cain does. Or another example of God manipulating his creations. Pharaoh. Pharaoh. He probably wanted to say no, but God wouldn't let him say no. God hardened his heart. Oh, I'm sorry. That came out wrong. Pharaoh probably wanted to say yes. After maybe the first time and he saw that, okay, God, Moses has this power and he's causing the city a lot of bad stuff. After, a couple bad plagues or firestorms or whatever, Pharaoh's like, fine, go, get lost, take your people and go. But he can't because God hardens his heart. Why? So God can have even more opportunity to make even more suffering happen in Egypt. And ultimately take all those children. So again, God manipulates people. It's all part of his plan. We are all just little pawns. If Christianity is believed, and is to be believed, and if the biblical God depicted in the Bible that's what he is. He manipulates. Same thing with the story of Adam and Eve. Just like Cain and Abel, God knew ahead of time everything that would take place, and it was all orchestrated by him. Why would he put Satan? He throws Satan down. Satan just happens to be in the garden. Do you think God knew he was there? I do. He's supposed to be all-knowing. He knew he was there. He puts Adam and Eve in the garden. Do you think that he knows that Satan is going to come out and tempt Eve? Of course he does, because he knows everything. He tells them about a tree. Oh, don't touch that. That's apparently pretty tempting. Knowing ahead of time they're going to. It's almost like he points them in the direction and pushes them that way. Here, oh, but don't touch. It's like, why did he point the thing out in the first place? And then he's telling them, if you eat of this fruit, you will die. Well, Adam and Eve are newly born. Do you think they know what death is? Everything that exists in the garden is basically immortal at this point. There's no such thing as death at this point. So for God to say, well, if you do this, you're going to die. It's like, okay, thank you. Nice to know that. What's death? They don't know what the hell death is. They don't know anything. They're like little newborn kids. They don't know anything. He puts a hazard in there. Close proximity points the hazard out. The hazard is tempting. And then he has knowingly allowed his arch enemy to be in the same garden and in close proximity. It's all puppet strings. It's all manipulated. It's all orchestrated. It's all according to God's divine plan. And yet, what is happening? We all get to be cast out of paradise. Women get to be made to suffer when they have children. All this punishment gets to happen because we did what God made us to do. We did as according to God's divine plan, and so did Satan. And yet Satan's destined to be thrown in a lake of fire for being created by God to be what he was. All of us atheists who have inability to believe because we are not hardwired to be able to believe just because somebody says it's true or a book says it's true. And who made us that way? God did. We all get to be tortured for all eternity because God made us this way. Anyway, this is becoming a rant. Or maybe, I don't even know. I don't know why I make videos in the morning because I am so not here. The best part of this video is when I was reading because I wrote that later in the day. Anyway, I hope some of this makes sense. I just felt like I had all this stuff going on in my head and I'm like, I have to go to work and I need to be focusing on my job and I can't if I have all this stuff in my head. So there it is. I hope some of it makes sense. Thanks for listening if you have. Bye.